Welcome to the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast with your hosts, Pat High, Richie Kopech, and Joe Capozzi. Welcome to the lair.
And welcome back to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. I am your host today, Joe, joined by Richie. Matt is not here. He is sick. So we have a guest correspondent on the road right now, Mr. Steve, another member of our Dynasty League.
Yeah.
Steve, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on the podcast. Let me spend some time with you, chat it up a bit.
Yeah, even during your busy schedule, makes time. Even on the road, he makes time for us.
No excuses. Excuses in
unlike
this
some of these other league members. Oh, I'm at volleyball camp. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Marson, and Josh. Oh, I don't have a camera. Oh my goodness. But all right, we got Steve, so we don't even need him.
Yeah.
So of course we're going to start with our quick question, which is going to be, what has been your biggest fantasy regret this far this season? Richie, we'll start with you. What has been your biggest regret this season so far?
Well, for me, it's definitely been taking a tight end too early. As much as I love having TJ Hawkinson on my team, I'm really struggling right now as far as my RB2 spot. And I'm playing this constant, like, what if this happens, or maybe, like, I could pick up a guy in advance and, like, hold him out for a week. And it's really just cluttering up my bench spots and ultimately just driving me insane. So, yeah, I don't know. I would much rather have taken a better running back at coming around, the fourth or the third round. So.
Fair enough. Steve, what about you? What's your biggest fantasy regret this season?
Oh man, we were drafting and I was between a couple of players for the tag team 1 and 2 that I had. I would not have chosen Dobbins if I knew that this was the result that I'd get. Not even like 2 weeks in and the man's out for the season. I should have just went with like a wide receiver even. We had so many good options available in that first and second round, and I gambled and did not pan out.
That's so funny because my biggest regret is in our Dynasty League doing that 3-way trade with you and Chris. Trading DJ Moore,
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins in a second. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. I have a young running back. He looks really good. I'm watching the game. I'm like, oh, man, this was a great trade. He looks good. And I got a second. Boom. Dead. Gone for the season.
On paper, he looked good, though.
Although I did see that video of him and Aaron Rodgers in rehab center putting in work. So who knows? Maybe he'll come back.
You're going to turn out better in Dynasty when he comes back. I can't do anything in the redraft league. For this year, it's over.
That is rough. Nick Chubb and J.K. Dobbins owners, salute to you. Let's run through the news real quick. Dawson Knox is getting wrist surgery. Okay. Jerome Ford slotted to miss up to 2 weeks with an ankle injury, so that's kind of a bummer for Ford owners. But Kareem Hunter owners are having parties. Pierre Strong's there too, I guess, if you care at all. I doubt that's going to be anything. Zach Ertz on IR. He'll miss 4 weeks. If you're playing Zach Ertz as your tight end, I feel sorry for you already. Waddle is questionable with a back injury. I think he should play, especially with and then on other news of the Dolphins, Tyreek Hill did not practice today with an undisclosed injury. That's something worth monitoring. Tua talked about what it would be like to play without him. We'll see. Bucks have opened the 21-day return window for Chase Edmonds from IR, so Chase Edmonds is pretty good. Jalen Hurts has a brace on his leg during the Saturday Night Football game or Sunday night, but does not expect him to miss any time. Jalen Hurts, I don't see him not playing. Justin Fields is doubtful for Week 8. Shocker. Tyson Bagent, it will start again. He looks pretty good. I won't lie. Roshan Johnson may return from his concussion. We'll see. Jimmy G is going to miss another week. Is it going to be Hayden O'Connell or Brian Hoyer? Who knows? I'm hoping it's Hayden O'Connell, but we'll see. DK says he feels good and he should be back Sunday. Thank goodness. Sean Watson did not return for the game on Sunday, and I've heard that he will not be playing this weekend. So we got Mr. PJ Walker, Mr. Send our teammate Warren to the Bahamas, the undefeated 49ers killer coming back. T. Higgins back to practice. Brock Purdy's in concussion protocol, but he should be back for Sunday's game, according to Kyle Shanahan. And Chris Olave got arrested for speeding. Matt didn't put that on there because he was so embarrassed because he owns Olave. But straight to jail, no pass go. We'll see what type of fine / suspension he gets. At least he didn't kill someone, so that's a
I
plus.
don't count this game time. I don't think at least.
Yeah, if anything, it might be next season. I don't know. We'll see what Mr. Goodell decides. Moving on, we're gonna do some fantasy buy, sells, and holds. So we're gonna look at this from a dynasty perspective. I'm gonna name some names. You're gonna tell me if you have him, if you're gonna be selling high on him, if you're holding him, or if you don't have him, is this a player you're aggressively trying to buy? The first one is Jordan Addison. Steve, we'll start with you. Jordan Addison, are you buying, selling, or holding him?
I don't have him, so I can't really speak to that. But if I were an Addison owner, I would just hold him for now. I think there's still so much to be said and so much to be seen on that team. I wouldn't discount him quite yet, but we have seen what we've seen so far. But my opinion is just hold on and see what the next couple of weeks hold out for him.
All right,
I wouldn't
Richie,
exactly do something right now.
I like that. Richie, what about you?
I'd be buying him if I could. He's definitely been or caught my attention as far as just I understand like it's just a couple of games without Justin Jefferson, but promising to see. And I think we can see some sort of 1A and 1B, as I've said kind of in the past, just as we've seen in other great offenses. So yeah, no, I'd definitely be trying to buy him, or if I had him, I'd be holding.
We got them all here. Steve says hold, you says buy. I had him and I sold him. I think that his value right now is really high with especially now with Jefferson out. This next draft class, the wide receiver talent is insane. Grant, don't get me wrong. I think Jordan Addison is a great player. That's why I drafted him. But I think there's going to be players coming out of this draft that you'll be much happier with in the long run. If you can get some early first capital and maybe something else on top, I would 100% move him for that. But that's just personally me. Moving on, we have Jonathan Taylor. Richie, we'll start with you. Are you buying, selling, or holding on Jonathan Taylor?
It's very tough for me, I mean, it's like I want to say, you know, hold him. There's really nothing else you can do. I think realistically, it's a tough situation right now, kind of waiting for him to take back over, to a dominant snap share. But I think he's definitely going to at some point, and you're gonna be glad you held. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at.
All right, what about you, Steve? Jonathan Taylor, buy, sell, hold.
I think it's funny because don't you have Jonathan Taylor, Joe?
I
And
do.
we were going back and forth over that. Listen, I say sell. I don't see him sticking around with the Colts, especially after the whole friction with front office earlier this season. There's some miscommunication. There's definitely some people who are disgruntled. And let's be honest, when Zach Moss filled in for him, he did pretty damn good. So I think they're going to look to move him to a different team, if not in the next year, next couple of years, either by Jonathan Taylor's choice or just by sheer team vote at that point. Sell him. He has the good reputation, and I'm sure he'll land wherever he lands. But that's not a gamble that I'm willing to take, especially as a Zach Moss owner. I'd say just let him fly and try and get a couple of good picks. That would be a good investment. That would be definitely a good trade that you could look into.
I could see that. I'm on the hold side of Jonathan Taylor. He did just sign the 4-year contract, so it does look like the Colts are invested in him in the long run. We saw last week he took kind of a step forward, especially I believe Zach Moss is injured now, so we did see a lot more Jonathan Taylor. I think they're kind of monitoring his usage because they did sign that big 4-year contract. They don't want to get him hurt right away, especially coming off that injury. And I definitely wouldn't sell him right now, just because the value for what you're going to get for him right now at this current moment is definitely not going to be what you paid for him, unless you drafted him late in the first. But for me, I traded for him. I traded a couple firsts and some other high key players, and I'm not getting that back right now. So I'm gonna ride the train and see where we end up. Moving on. I'll start with you again for this one, Richie, just because it's one close to your heart. Saquon Barkley. buy, sell, hold, as the man with the jersey behind him?
I think it's more of depends on where we're at. If we're talking redraft,
We're
personally, I
talking
don't think.
dynasty for this one. Dynasty.
Okay. So in a dynasty league, for me, it's a sell. Um, Running backs get to a certain
Wow.
age, and and at that point, I always look to go out and try to acquire what I can per se before it really turns into a wall, hit the wall situation. So competing teams later, maybe in that week or two before trade deadline that are like at that point kind of thin at running back, but really are able to make a run. That's when you really kind of capitalize on trading away a running back. But of course, if you've had Saquon, I mean, he probably has been helping you. He hasn't been doing terrible. So tough to say, tough to really let a player like that go. Someone like me, I don't know. I think at this point, I'm just going to watch the flames burn out on my own property.
I think you
But
have to
but
now.
but, but it's okay. Saquon, you're my boy.
Got to go down with the ship. What about you, Steve? Saquon Barkley, buy, sell,
Oh,
hold.
Richie's got too much loyalty to the Giants. That's what it is. You just that's the thing, man. You gotta just let it fly. Are they going to be significantly better? I can't see that. No, that offense has been struggling, and there's a lot of questions, right? So, if me
Too many
personally,
questions.
I would sell. Personally, I would sell, even if it's a redraft and the season's like halfway there. I'd still try and sell and pick them up for somebody better, just because there's a lot better options out there right now, and a couple of young guys. If you are keeping an eye out, there's plenty of better options, and Saquon's still pretty valued at that high mark right now. So you're not going to get completely fleeced for an offer, and you could probably get something good out of them, but I wouldn't hold them.
Yeah, I think I'm also with you, Steve, on this one. I'm a sell on Barkley. I think Richie also said he was a sell, just outside of his bias. So I think we all agree on that. We're selling on Barkley and Dynasty. Big name. He has that big name potential, so you can probably get some good picks, good players for him. But yeah, it depends on if his situation changes. Maybe he goes to a better team, and he's more of a key piece of it. But
That's
he's on
I was
started on
gonna
that decline. But
that was gonna be the one thing I wanted to say was that there is still that potential of him getting traded. I know it sucks, but especially as a Giants fan, but it still is in the cards or realm of possibilities. So he goes to a team like the Ravens or Miami. I don't know. So
yeah,
interesting.
for sure. Moving on, we got Calvin Ridley, wide receiver on Jacksonville. Steve, we'll start with you. Are you buying, selling, or holding Calvin Ridley?
I don't know. It's been disappointing, but I still think that there is some potential, especially with that offense. It's just kind of been a little bit weird with him. I'm holding, personally.
Okay,
You probably drafted him a little bit higher than you should have, but I don't think it's totally a lost cause at this point, in my opinion.
fair enough. What about you, Richie? Calvin Ridley.
Oh, great. I agree with Steve. This kind of plays back to your take on Jonathan Taylor, where it's like a consideration as a buy low candidate just for how poorly he's been playing. I think better weeks are ahead for him, and I mean we've seen what he can do. So yeah, you just gotta ride out the low waves here.
Yeah, I think I'm also with you guys. I'm holding Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley. I mean, we saw him in training camp. He looked significantly faster than everyone else. He's a really good wide receiver. I saw some crazy statistic on him that like he really struggles when Zay Jones is on the field with him. It's like the voodoo man is out there with him and just makes him play like big doo doo. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't be getting rid of Ridley or panicking. He's still young enough to play a good amount more years in the NFL as long as he doesn't bet anymore. So definitely holding on to him. Next up, we got Jackson Smith and Jigba. Richie, we'll start with you. Are you buying, selling, or holding on Jackson Smith and Jigba?
You gotta hold as far as how I see it. It's a player that is getting worked into the offense. There is still, I mean, as you can kind of see with Tyler Lockett, he's still there, but wavering out. I know they're kind of on different positions per se, or different what they do on the field. But either way, it's just something that I think we're going to see more more of him as we go, as he gets integrated further and further. He did play with a lot of with the cast, or for the first couple of weeks there, tampering the way he can play. So I think just getting all accumulated and all, it's I think we could see wheels up for the best wide receiver in that draft class.
Yeah, fair enough. I kind of agree with you there. Steve, what about you? Are you buying, selling, or holding on
I agree.
Jackson Smith and Jigba?
I would
Yeah.
hold, just because he is new. He's still getting the feel for everything, and we haven't quite seen what he's capable of yet. There's still a lot to be answered. So I'd say don't count him out just yet. He doesn't look terrible, but we do need to just kind of keep an eye on how the whole offense performs with him and how he works with everybody.
I completely agree. I'm actually on the hold. I'd hold him if I had him, but I'm actually on the buying side for him.
Yeah.
Last week with DK out, he looked great. He's kind of buried in that depth chart behind Lockett and DK, so we haven't really seen too much of him this season. But he was the best wide receiver in the last draft class. He was probably taken in the top 6 picks or 4 picks of your draft in Dynasty. So I would definitely be looking to buy him on the cheap right now, because DK's coming back. His numbers should start to decline again, but Lockett's up there in age, and Jigba's going to look real good pretty soon. So definitely would be buying if the price is right, or holding him if you have him. You're not going to get what you want, what you paid for him back right now. Moving on, we got Isaiah Pacheco. Steve, we'll start with you. Isaiah Pacheco, are you buying, selling, or holding on Pacheco?
I'm selling.
I like that answer a lot.
I could go into it, but no, I don't.
Okay.
Just the way they've been playing. No, I'm selling. I just don't see it coming back around. And Isaiah Pacheco still has that name brand to him, so you're pretty much in a good position to get something better if you put him on the block right now, I'd say.
Fair enough. Richie, what about you? Isaiah Pacheco, are you selling, holding, or buying?
I would say sell. He's been pretty good as of late. I think you can get definitely some good capital for him. I don't really like the Kansas City backfield so much, as this is kind of Pat Mahomes throwing most of the time. So I don't know. I've always, other than when we seen years ago when Kareem Hunt was the running back there, other than past that, it's just always kind of been a mishmash of different people, and it's never really been the guy there. So I don't know if Pacheco is really the guy, but he's been playing well. So I think I think you should sell him right now, before he goes back down and then another one comes up.
I completely agree with both of you. I serve no allegiance to any running backs drafted in the 7th round. The teams have no allegiance to the running backs drafted in the 7th round. Didn't cost them anything. They're very free to make trades or move on in draft classes to new running backs. Pacheco does look really good. He looks like he's running downhill, and he's on one of the best offenses in the league. People are going to pay up for him. I sold him before the season even started, for that name value of being a young running back on the Chiefs, and he's having a great season. So it was a good trade for the person that got him. But I would much rather have the draft capital, especially as a team that wasn't planning on competing, um, for Pacheco. Moving on, we have Michael Pittman Jr. Richie, we'll start with you on Michael Pittman Jr. Are you buy, sell, or hold on him?
I think you could buy him for pretty cheap. Seems like, not really much coming from him, but he can flash here or there. It's not really a player I'm excited to get, but then again, I don't think you got to spend a lot to get him. So if you're selling him, I think you're selling him for cheaper than, or selling him for pretty cheap. Um, I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I'd probably be trying to buy him for cheap if I'm looking for a wide receiver. So the way I'm looking at it.
What about you, Steve? Michael Pittman Jr.
I think you could buy him for cheap. I'm speaking at a owner level here because I do have him in the redraft league, and he's been a fantastic slot option for me and a good filler for wide receiver when a bye week comes around for one of those guys. But honestly, he's just been consistent. Had a couple of bad weeks, but nothing too crazy. He's kind of been across the board doing the same thing. So I like the reliability of him. I do see him working well into that offense, and you're not getting a roller coaster of weeks with him. You're not going to see him pop off. But as long as you know that and you can kind of work him into your team as this solid, consistent dude, then I think it's a good hold, in my opinion.
I could definitely see that. I like Michael Pittman. Personally, if I had him in a dynasty perspective, I'd I kind of want to sell him. And what I'd be looking to get for him is if you can get Josh Downs and maybe a high pick, like a second round draft pick with Josh Downs, I'd be making that move. Josh Downs looks really, really good. Um, he's younger. I was a fan of his coming out of college, and not that Michael Pittman isn't good, but if you can get a player plus a pick that I think can be at the same playing level as Michael Pittman, I'd say go for it. But if not, I also like holding him. I think he's a fantastic player. I like Minshew there more than Richardson. That definitely helps his value, but you also have to think when Richardson comes back, he is a mobile quarterback that's running a lot. It might hurt some of the wide receivers' values, but see when that bridge comes. Moving on, we got Marquise Brown. Steve, we'll start with you on this one. Marquise Brown, are you buying, selling, or holding on Hollywood Brown?
I don't know. That's tough for me. I'm going to just say hold. And it hasn't been what we wanted for the season for Marquise Brown, but I don't know. I'm just going to hold on to him if I'm the owner.
I think that's a good option, especially with Kyler coming back pretty soon. Richie, what about you? Marquise Hollywood Brown.
It's definitely your buy now before it's before that door closes, because Kyler Murray is coming back to play, and Kyler Murray is a pretty magical quarterback that we have seen before do great things on the field. And with that, I think we're going to see a uptick in the production coming out of his favorite target, which is Hollywood Brown. So, yeah, I think you need to buy him now before his price gets too expensive.
I 100% agree with you. I'm also buying on Marquise Brown before Kyler returns. It might be a little too late now. I think a lot of these Brown owners might already want you to pay up with Kyler coming back. I mean, I already got shooken down by Jeremy in our league when I asked him about Michael Wilson like a week or two ago. He's like, "Well, Kyler might be coming back and he might be good." So it's already too late in
Might
some
be good.
leagues, but it might be good is the key word. It's already too late, but if you want to take the risk on it, go ahead and buy. And moving right along that line, we got Kyler Murray. Richie, are you buying, selling, or holding on Kyler Murray coming off that injury?
You can't buy him right now. Just the same way that I think, you put it in a good word or good words where it's just that the window is technically closed right now because of the news. So Kyler Murray coming back right now is going to make it so you can't buy him. You can try to sell him if you don't believe in it, but for me, I'm going to hold him because I'm just going to play him when he comes back because, like I said, he's a good quarterback.
Fair enough. Steve, what about you? Kyler Murray coming off that injury. Are you buying, selling, or holding?
That's a good one, actually. I would try to sell him for something better. He's got perception to him that he's this top elite quarterback that can put up a crap ton of fantasy points. Um, I think there is a lot to be said about the injury and about what the offense looks like and how he's going to be incorporated back into it. But I think if you can sell him for somebody who, I mean, you can package a deal together, get another quarterback and maybe like a wide receiver or maybe picks and try and get like a good wide receiver coming out of that next draft class. That might be a better investment if you're looking at like a dynasty perspective. But time will tell as to how well he'll bounce back or if he'll bounce back, right?
Exactly. I think you put that perfectly, and I'm kind of in that boat where I have Kyler in our Superflex Dynasty League, and I've actually had people approach me to trade for him, and it's just such a hard player to value right now because he's not playing, and he was such an elite quarterback, and you're not going to get those elite prices because he's not playing, but you're also don't want to sell him for pebbles when he was such an elite quarterback. So he's really in that weird spot. So I think I'm on the hold train. You're not going to get what you want for him, but you're also not you don't want to sell him for nothing. So I'm hoping he does well when he comes back, but maybe I'm a fool and I should have sold, but I guess we shall see. We're going to move on to the mailbag. These are some trades that people are contemplating. They are posted on Reddit and subreddit Fantasy Football Advice. We go on here and look at some of these questions every so often. So if you have questions, you can throw them on there, or you can always email them to us, tweet at us, any of the social media platforms. I'm going to put the ticker on. Boom. There's our website. Just go to that website and www.theheroesff.com. Plenty of ways to contact us. We'll answer any questions you guys might have. First trade on the agenda. Someone is asking if they should trade Mike Evans and Dameon Pierce for Nico Collins and Aaron Jones. We'll start with you, Richie, on this one. Mike Evans and Dameon Pierce for Nico Collins and Aaron Jones.
I think I lean on the side of the Mike Evans and Dameon Pierce than I do the Nico Collins and Aaron Jones. And it's just that, Mike Evans is definitely a tried and true wide receiver that we see, time after time. And clearly Baker also likes him as a target as well. So he's been playing well, and not to knock anything about Nico Collins as far as it's a trade from wide receiver for wide receiver, as Nico's been good, but Nico is also playing with a rookie quarterback that we don't know much of. So I don't know. It's tough for me to really go with that way. I'd rather go with the tried and true Mike Evans. Dameon Pierce, I understand, has not been that great, but still not a bad option. And Aaron Jones is just a little riskier, I think, than Dameon Pierce, just with the way the age and the injuries are going on there. So, Mike Evans and Dameon Pierce for me.
What about you, Steve, on this trade? So it's Mike Evans and Dameon Pierce for Nico Collins and Aaron Jones.
I got a lot of love for Dameon Pierce, so I'm kind of leaning towards the side of that trade. I still think there's a lot to be seen from him, and this season has been a little bit lackluster, to say the least, but I still think he's miles better than Aaron Jones, and I personally like Mike Evans a little bit more.
Interesting. See?
I think he's tried, and he is that guy.
Okay. I see. That's interesting because you two guys are on that side. I'm on the other side here. I think Nico Collins looks electric. He looks so good in that offense. He struggled last year, but now with Stroud there, he looks so good. And you're getting Aaron Jones, who probably has, I'd say, like a year or two left, good years left in him. But you're trading Mike Evans, who, don't get me wrong, I love Mike Evans, but he's a 30-year-old wide receiver. That's coming up on that. He's already over the hump, and he's starting to go downhill. I don't see him playing for too many more years, maybe one or two. And then you're also getting Dameon Pierce, or you're trading away Dameon Pierce, who had a great year last year, but as Steve said, he's struggling this year. Singletary looks to be doing better than he is, and I could see them drafting another running back in this coming draft, or trading for someone to be a part of that running back backfield. I mean, Pierce was a late draft pick. These late draft pick players, they don't lose out too much on if they bust. It's not like a tier one player, like a first round draft pick that they've invested so heavily in that they need to make work. If they want to move on from him, they're going to move on from him. So I kind of like the Nico Collins, Aaron Jones side personally, but I am outweighed by the Evans and Pierce believers here. So we will say the Mike Evans, Dameon Pierce side for this trade. Moving on, we have another trade. This one is for Ramondre Stevenson and George Pickens for CeeDee Lamb. I'll start with you, Steve. Ramondre Stevenson and George Pickens for CeeDee Lamb.
For CeeDee Lamb? That's I don't know. That's not. Well, with the way that the Patriots have been playing, I don't know. That's tough.
It's a tough one.
I'm still, yeah, no.
CeeDee is considered one of those top 10 wide receivers in Dynasty
still,
format.
Yeah. I would still do CeeDee Lamb. He is the guy for Dak, and that's been shown in that offense. Actually, hasn't been too. What do you mean? They're doing all right, but CeeDee Lamb is that top wide receiver. I don't know. That's the one to go with, though.
Yeah, because Fantasy Pros has him as the Dynasty wide receiver 4.
Uh-huh.
It's a tough one for sure. I mean, What do you think, Richie? Let's get you weigh in here. Ramondre Stevenson and Pickens for CD. Which side do you fall on this one?
Well, I think if you're the CD owner, it doesn't move the needle, you know. You need more than that. But I would imagine that as a CD owner, you're going to want a first in return. If we're talking dynasty, if we're talking redraft, you'd have to I'd have to have serious struggles at running back and a good second wide receiver to want to give up
Yeah.
CD for Ramondre and Pickens. I feel like with CD, you can get more than Ramondre and Pickens in a redraft. But
Yeah,
if we're talking dynasty, you got to start with the first.
I think it's a clean sweep here. If CD's offered for me for those two players, I'm smashing the accept button. CD Lamb has shown us that he's just an elite talent. I mean, there's a reason why Fantasy Pros ranks him as the number 4 wide receiver. It's not just because they're just picking names out of a hat. It's because he's that good, and he's young. He's got many years left in him. Granted, George Pickens looks really good, but like me and Matt have been huge critics of him. He doesn't get separation he makes contested catches, which they look really pretty and really cool, but they're not going to be consistent fantasy points, and they're not quarterback friendly in the NFL. So I'm gladly taking CD Lamb on this one. Next question: Sam Laporta for Drake London. We'll start with you again, Richie. What do you think on this one? Sam Laporta for Drake London.
I think this one really
It's a tough one.
It depends on like what your team makeup is. You know, I mean, Laporta, I'd imagine you'd probably have Laporta as your second tight end that you drafted in the rookie draft, right? And you have a tight end, so maybe you have a better tight end and Laporta's just your backup, and you're a little lacking as far as on the wide receiver end. Drake London has some splash weeks here and there, and I think can definitely contribute to a team. So, I mean, I think the only way that this trade makes sense to me is on teams that are lacking one way or the other. A team that needs a tight end and has Drake London as their wide receiver 4 or 5, and yeah, vice versa. So that's how I view that.
Yeah, Fantasy Pros has Drake London as the wide receiver 17 for Dynasty, and they have Sam Laporta for the tight end 5 for Dynasty. What about you, Steve? Drake London or Sam Laporta?
Probably Sam Laporta, just because if you're looking at my team, it's kind of shallow when it comes to tight ends, and that's more of a dime a dozen. I would definitely pick him up if that was the offer, and you're not talking like a wide receiver 1 here. So yeah, it kind of is a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I think looking at this trade, I think I do kind of lean more on the Sam Laporta side. He has looked really good. He looks like he's a very viable tight end for Dynasty, and we all know tight ends have very long shelf lives, even longer than wide receivers, which is very nice. You're investing in a good one, you're going to have them for the long run. Until Drake London looked like a good player, but the quarterback situation there in Atlanta and Arthur Smith being there just really kills any desire I have for any Falcons player ever until he leaves and a new quarterback's there. So I'm on the Sam Laporta side. But as Richie also said, it also depends what your team needs. If you need a wide receiver and you have another good tight end, perfectly fine trade to make. Our final trade for today. Should someone trade Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews and Dameon Pierce for Jalen Hurts and Puka Nacua? So it's Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Dameon Pierce for Jalen Hurts and Puka Nacua. Steve, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I would. Absolutely. I'd pick up Jalen Hurts and Puka Nacua. Are you kidding me?
Okay. Heard it there.
That's
no more explanation needed.
Man, they're both electric, and they're both like still getting better year after year. And this Puka just coming out of his shell right now. Like, you got to think this kid's like got so much more in the tank. Jalen Hurts has proved last year and this year. You and me joked about it like a couple years ago, saying like, "Oh, is Jalen Hurts elite quarterback number 1?" No, he is elite quarterback, not number 1, but he is up there, man. He has been like solid, and his offense is just incredible this season too. And it's not going to end there. So yeah, I'm picking them up for sure. And what, trading away what, Lamar and Mark
Lamar
Andrews?
Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Dameon Pierce.
I wouldn't be too heartbroken to lose that tight end. And also, Dameon Pierce is Dameon Pierce. You're really just kind of shuffling out Lamar at that point.
Okay,
It's kind of a no-brainer.
that's true. What about you, Richie? How do you fall in this trade?
Oh, no, I think I'd give up those three for Hurts and Puka as well. I mean, Lamar, I think is a little bit more hot and cold, as Hurts has just been more consistent. And yeah, Mark Andrews, I mean, it's great to have that stack, but at the same time, again, as I started at the top with, taking a tight end too early is ultimately shooting me in the foot. So, yeah, no, I'm cool with the Hurts and the Puka side.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a clean sweep on this one. As much as it pains me to say, as a Lamar owner and fan, I'm also a huge Puka fan and have been trying to buy him unsuccessfully. But I think those are two long-term fantasy assets. Hertz is a little younger than Lamar, so that's always a plus. I think they're both pretty close in playing ability, IMO. But yeah, Mark Andrews looks good, but he's also getting up there in age. And Dameon Pierce, like I talked about before, they hold no allegiance to him. He looks to be struggling this year. So I definitely would love to have Puka and Hurts on my team. As long as you can give up that running back and tight end, then 100% go for it. So, but that is going to do it for us here at the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Thank you, Steve, for being our guest appearance on the show. We're going to be trying to get more of our Dynasty league mates to come in and do some guest appearances, get some outside perspective. We'll do some different activities, maybe look at some different trades and bring you some more content to keep your fantasy season rolling. Make sure you check out our website, www.theheroesff.com. If you have any questions or if you want our opinions on anything, you want us to look at a trade, look at a player, what we would trade for something, anything at all, just shoot it over to us and we'll review it. We'll get you those answers. You can believe it. But adios. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Later.
Bye, guys.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the Heroes FF.